This tutorial is about creating your item groups and assigning them to your catalog tree. In the last session we talked about building out your catalog tree, and now we take it one more step to get those items assigned to it. I'm going to log in as the administrator. I'm going to go up to eSource Settings, down to Module Admin on the lower left, open up my catalog tree and open up Setup. We're going to go into what's called group maintenance. Group maintenance is where we create a group name and then we assign items to that group. The groups are then, we go back to catalog tree and we assign a group to our root or our leaf nodes. Remember in our last training when we talked about the catalog tree, we indicated that anything that doesn't have a plus or minus next to it is considered a leaf node, that the tree doesn't go any further, and it's at this node that we assign the item groups. So you'll notice when I highlight this, I have a group assignment tab. If I highlight men's, I'm not going to be able to save changes to a group assignment tab. I'm not going to be able to assign anything there. But on t-shirts, you'll see that I do see my groups. So let's talk about how we create that group. Go back to group maintenance. You're going to click the plus sign here to add a new group. Down here in the lower part, this is where we're going to give the group a name. I'm going to call it Tutorial Shirts. It's going to default in when you tab into a description. These fields right here are not used yet. The image and the HTML and the PDF, we'll come back to those and describe a little bit more of those in detail when we are talking about if you're using dimension groups. Dimension groups are if you are using if you're selling like apparel and you've got a polo shirt that comes in red, blue, green, small, medium, and large, that would be 9 items, 9 SKUs in GP. But we group them together into what's called a dimension group so that we're showing one product and the customer has to go into the item detail and pick from drop-downs what size and what color they want. So that's a particular kind of group where you would then check this check mark saying it is a dimension group. So shirts in general would probably be a dimension group. I'm not going to set that up now. If you do have our dimension group module, then there'll be another training that talks about how to set up your dimension groups and how those work. Just keep in mind that if you are setting up your groups, that every style, like that polo shirt, needs to go in its own group. So all the different colors and sizes of that one shirt should go in its own group. Every shirt you are selling should have its own group. So I'm going to say Save Changes. So I'm going to scroll down here and it should have alphabetized it and I should see Tutorial Shirts there. If I highlight it, it brings it back over here, and then I can go to the item range. And in the item range, I can start assigning which items belong in that group. So I can say that I've got my, I know I've got some items out there called MST. If I don't see my items when I hit Preview Items, there's one step that you should always take before you start working with items on your site, and that's this Load Items from GP menu. What this does is synchronizes the items from your GP inventory into the catalog engine so they're available to assign to groups. All you do is hit the Load Items from GP and it very quickly, well, depending on how many items you have in GP, will load them to synchronize them into our tables. Now let's go back to that group maintenance. Okay, so I'm going to do my Tutorial Shirts. And I'm going to say I want MST001 through MST002. Preview the items. Okay, I'm going to assign all these MST001s. It looks to me like they're all MST01s. Those are all the ones I want. I'm going to say check them all, and then I'm going to say assign the selected items. So those all went into this one item group called Tutorial Shirts. If I want to delete one out, I can just click there and hit the delete. I can check all and delete all of them. So there's, if you made a mistake, that's how you can remove it. This is the manual way of assigning items to a group. There'll also be another tutorial that you'll be able to watch about importing items into a group. And the import will create the group as well as will assign the items to the group. So you don't have to worry about having to do this all manually. You can do this with an import. It's always valuable to try to build a couple out when you're first starting. Make sure that you understand the manual mechanics of it. The eCatalog filter tab, we'll talk about that one once we go into our eCatalog training where you can create filters. So it's a good way of being able to utilize a item filter to get yourself a subset where an item range, I just put the beginning and the ending item numbers and it showed me everything in that range. But in the filter I could say show me everything that has the word phone in it and show me just the phones or just the t-shirts. The node assignment is going to show where this item group is assigned once we've gone back in and assigned it to the tree. So that's the next step. Let's go right ahead, go back to our tree, and I'm going to go to tutorial, and I'm going to go to my categories and my clothing and my men's and my t-shirts, and this is where I want to assign my tutorial shirts. That's the group I'm assigning, and hit Save Changes. Okay, we're not going to start seeing those items quite yet on the website because there's some follow-up work we have to do in our eCatalog program to get that published out. But let's go ahead. We have to do a publish here because we just assigned a group to the leaf node. So we're going to then publish that out. Just hit publish. If you have linked attributes, that module, then when you hit publish you're going to want to uncheck this first because the linked attributes typically are many attributes assigned to items, and you may get a timeout on the site if you try to update the item assignment attribute assignments. So you want to hit the publish without this check mark if you have linked attributes. So let's summarize what we just talked about here. We talked about creating item groups. So we went to group maintenance. But before we even come into group maintenance, it's a good idea to always do the load items from GP. That's just a quick check mark and loads any new items that you might have added in GP, makes them accessible in the catalog engine. Then we went to group maintenance. We hit the plus here and it created a group that we called tutorial shirts. After we created the group, we talked a little bit about that the images, HTML and PDF are going to be referred to when we talk in a session on dimension group if you own that module. If you have items of dimensions that you're going to put on your website, then you're going to want to put all of that product's dimensional items into its own separate group. So I explained an example of a polo shirt. That a red, blue, green, small, medium, large, 9 items, those would all be assigned to one particular group and marked as a dimension group. The HTML text as well is part of that dimension group functionality. So we saved the changes, then we came to the item range and we put a range for a beginning and ending, hit preview items. It listed all of the items that I want, and I checked the ones I wanted to assign and clicked on the button that said assign the items, and it brought them up here as the assignments. After we had the item group, we went back to the catalog tree. We expanded where we want to assign that. We went to the clothing, men's, t-shirts, went to the group assignment tab, and we moved it from this left-hand panel over to the right and hit Save Changes. Once we did that, we hit Publish. And that started so that we can now start, we know that those items are at that level of the tree. The next session that you're going to want to watch is about eCatalog. When we created that catalog tree called Tutorial, it's going to create something in eCatalog, which is a standalone program to help manage item information on your website, and there's going to be some follow-up publishing to do in that program as well. So the next session please watch is the eCatalog training session.